So now that we have our vocals clean, what do we want to do to further mix the song? Well, we have to characterize our vocals. And I know I've made videos in the past where I've made how to mix vocals and then how to process vocals. But really, if you think about it, processing your vocals is part of the mixing process. Just to kind of go over a little overview of what we're going to do here. So we have the vocal that's starting off the song as it is. And you don't have to approach it this way if you don't want to, if your song doesn't fit this, you know. It's just a tidbit for this particular song. This vocal is pretty nice as it is. I think I even threw on CLA vocals here.
Loads of orange foam, dreaming of a day.
So basically, after I clean my vocals, I like to add the character. And this is where you're going to throw in your reverbs, your delays, distortions, your drivers. And so now what I like to do is I like to add my typical 2 favorite plugins, which is going to be Greg Wells VoiceCentric and CLA vocals. Sometimes I also add in a Maserati VX1 because that's like a little secret sauce, but sometimes it could be a little bit too much. But these 2 in conjunction together, I find, me personally, I don't care how cheap they are. I don't care that they're not the most expensive thing in the world and it's just very simple. This is what I use to achieve my sound. These 2 plugins, with some others, you know, every now and then. But these 2 are the main ones I love using because they're so easy to use. Let's see. So for this particular song, I don't want the reverb to be too crazy because it's not like a ballad. It's not a song that requires a lot of, you know, legato and people feeling like they're in a dream world and all this stuff. So to start the song off, I have my reverb here on CLA vocals. It's set to large, which is a medium-sized reverb. It's not chamber and it's not something that's in a tight room. And then I turned it a little bit below the starting point here. So a little bit down. It's at what? -1. I have a little bit of a spank compressor here. I turned up my sub bass. This is also a little bit of EQ here because we have our low end, we have our trebles, aka our highs. So this is going to be my highs, my mids kind of, and this is going to be my lows. So I wanted to turn up the bass a little bit because this particular vocal is coming from a female vocalist, Kelly, who doesn't have a lower end to her voice. She doesn't have any bass in her voice because her voice is higher up. She's got a higher pitched voice, and that's what she was born with. So what I like to think of in terms of like when it comes to EQing or adding these different plugins is whatever a person lacks in their vocal, you want to do some additive processing to counteract that characteristic, as long as it's not, you know, throwing off the mix of the song. So in my case, I have a lot of bottom to my voice. So in my case, I would kind of tone down the bass and turn up the treble. I'm adding what I lack. I'm counteracting what I lack by adding more of it on a channel EQ, but we can add it here in CLA vocals. We can subtract it here in CLA vocals as well. So that's what I would do because I want my vocals to be more bright. I don't want everything to sound, because if your vocal, for instance, if I recorded everything just as it was and I left my vocal as it was, when I export and I try to mix and master the song, it's just going to be like, it's got like a, like my vocals are all going to sound like it's just too warm. Because that frequency it's naturally occurring in my voice. That's why I love to add brightness to my vocals. That's why I love Maserati VX1. That's why I love these plugins, because it's very easy to add brightness. You can even use plugins like OneKnob Brighter, OneKnob Fatter to do the same. It's literally just one knob that you turn up and down and it'll add bass, it'll add brightness. So this is before we did the processing, and I'll take off Greg Wells as well.
Wrap myself in loads of orange foam.
And then here we go with CLA.
Wrap myself in loads of orange foam, dreaming of a day. Wrap myself in.
So you can see it kind of pushes the vocal even further into the forefront, as a lead vocal should be. So if your lead is not leading the song, if your lead is being drowned out by instrumentation or background vocals, your mix is wrong. A lead should be a lead. It should be in the forefront. In addition to CLA, just because it's my signature way to process vocals, I did this Greg Wells VoiceCentric as well. I turned up this main knob, which is the intensity of the plugin itself, a little bit of a doubler, because I love doublers. It's just, I can't get away from them. A little bit of a delay as well, because I like to kind of use both delays and both reverbs. I know it's weird, but it just gets a really cool sound. Because they're on two different time signatures. One is quarter, and I think this is a fourth or an eighth. And we got a little bit of reverb here, so.
Wrap myself in loads of orange foam, dreaming of a day
Now this might have a little bit too much bottom, so I'm going to take this down.
Wrap myself in loads of orange foam, dreaming of a day.
More presence. I know some people might say, you know, this is not the sound that they would personally go for, but it's what I would go for and what the artist would go for. So we did our CLA vocals and our Greg Wells VoiceCentric, also linked down below in the description if you want to go ahead and cop those. But they're very simple to use, just 1, 2, 3, 4 knobs. CLA vocals is 1, 2, 3, 6 different sliders with 3 settings per slider, and you change that with these here. So each of them have different sounds, which is also why I like this. You can get a crazy combination of settings here because each of them have 3 and they all have sliders here. So you can really customize your sound, but in a really simple way. That's why I like these 2 plugins. So you can hear already all of this stuff.
I rub myself in loads of orange foam. I rub myself in loads of orange foam.
Now another thing that you want to do and want to focus on when you're processing your song is make the song dynamic. You have to tell a sonic story. You're not just telling a story with the lyrics. You're not just telling a story with the music. You have to tell a story also with how you process the vocals. Here, a prime example. So we already have a little bit of reverb. We already have some character to this main vocal. It's not too flashy. It's not too reverby. It's got a little delay. So as we're coming out of this into the chorus, how do we want to differentiate the verse from the chorus, or the verse from the pre-chorus, or a verse from a rap? Well, we process the vocals differently. The chorus is going to be this big grand, we have literally 50 harmonies. Obviously we want the lead vocal on that big chorus to be as big as all the stacks, because the lead, even though it is being stacked, it's not being stacked directly on the same words. It's these in-betweens. Just like how I showed in my previous how to record or how to come up with harmonies video, we're recording in between. So we want this vocal to be able to stand on its own in the midst of all this that's going on. So how do we do that? We do all the processing that we did with the previous vocals. The easiest way to kind of put those same effects onto a different vocal track, if you don't have bus channels, is by clicking the save button down here to save this exact preset of this track that you have selected. And this is only in Logic and GarageBand. I don't know about any other DAW, but you can save your preset here and it'll save to your user patches, and you just select it here. So that's what I did. This was the Bondi Blue lead. I just click here, click the track. I click Bondi Blue chorus because I have processed the chorus, but if I wanted to do a lead, I would do that, and it applies all those to this right here. Now in this case, the way that we differentiated the verse from the chorus, since it's bigger, is we added more reverb. I think we spreaded the vocal a little bit more, and we just made it sound more ambient and kind of just like it's being sung in the stadium, like it's part of a halftime show or something like that. This is the part everybody is waiting for, the chorus, by going from this sort of kind of dry vocal to something that's more big. And you can see even in the volume, we turn the volume up because there's more instrumentation happening on the chorus. So the levels of the vocals on the chorus have to be higher as well, at least for the lead that is by itself. The stacked vocals, not so much, because since there's so many vocals, you're going to be able to hear those. It's the same exact plugins, Greg Wells, CLA vocals, and then we have Waves 2 and all the same stuff that was on here. No difference. But the one difference is that we just added a ton of reverb. So it's a little bit over the 0 on our CLA vocals for this separate vocal. Because this originally used to be all one track. This was up here. But as you can see, I just duplicated this, Command D, to a second track. So it had all the same sounds, all the same plugins, excuse me. And then I changed the settings of the CLA vocals just on this track to chamber, which is a bigger reverb. We turned it up a little bit. We gave it a higher volume on the delay, so you can hear the delay a little bit more. We turned up the spreader even more on the stereo sound, and everything else is pretty much the same. And so you go from the original vocal. I'll play it with the music actually. So it's very low. It's very different.
Trees in my pom-pom, trees that bloom, breeze in my hair,
so to me, when I first heard this part, it's like, breeze in my hair, I don't care, such a mood. That line right there is iconic enough that it needs to be boom, breeze in my hair. Everybody's gonna be singing that part, you know? breeze in my hair, like just dancing. So all the same plugins, like I said, just turn up the reverb and all that stuff, and then we get this effect that sounds totally different from the verse and big enough to fit the chorus, especially when we add in our harmonies.
Trees in my pom-pom, trees that bloom, breeze in my hair, I can't set you loose. Give me sunshine, crystal ocean views, sand in my...
So you hear how tiny it sounds without these two plugins?
Give me sunshine, give me sunshine, crystal ocean views.
We're getting somewhere. We're really getting somewhere. And you don't have to do too much, again, to process your vocals. I'm literally using just 2 vocals to give it character. But our song is starting to come together, as you can see. So the vocal is now loud enough, it's now dynamic enough with that reverb, with that delay, to match the intensity of the music that's being played, but also the many stacks that we have here that are being played. Now, the way that I process these in this song, I did them on an individual track basis. And I think the reason I did that was because I was just going and selecting the presets here. So I didn't use any bus channels when I know I should have. In this case, you would want to use bus channels, especially when you have 50 tracks, 50 harmonies, because now we're going to talk about how to mix the harmonies down. It's the same approach, only, different because you have pan vocals and things like that. So if you have a plugin that doesn't have bus channels, you would just do the same thing that I just taught, only make sure that your levels are set to emphasize the parts that need to be in the forefront, and the parts that serve kind of like a background role, make sure those are turned down. The parts that, once again, if you're singing everything, all the parts in your song, for me, for instance, as a guy with a lower voice, I usually have to turn my super low stuff up because it's way down here and I can't get a lot of volume. It's like really low. This is the loudest I can be. When I'm singing that, when I'm that low, that's the loudest I can be. If I'm in my mid-range, which is where my wheelhouse is, those vocals I would turn down because obviously I can project the most in my natural range. So whatever my strength is, I want to keep those vocals turned down. For my harmonies on this part, because me and Kelly both did harmonies. We're both basically just doing harmonies, but in our voices. It's the same harmonies. My strength is in the mid/kind of lower range. If I go too low, I'm going to have to turn the vocal up. But as you can see, so I'm pretty loud on these vocals here, and that's why they're turned way down. Also, it's her song, and I wanted her to have the forefront, but my vocals to kind of be like something like laying in a bed in the background. So that's why these vocals are turned down very much. And then you notice these here, which are still my vocals, and even these here, which are also my vocals, they're turned much more higher than the other ones. And why is that? It's because those are clearly quieter, because these are higher up in my range as well as this. So if I play this vocal, these 2 vocals here, you'll kind of get a glimpse of what I mean. Such a mood. I can easily sing that. Such a mood, sunshine. I can project there. So I don't want that to be super loud because I can already project into the microphone. Same thing with these harmonies. But then when we add in this note, which is the one that's a little bit higher, sunshine. I could project with this one, but it's still not as much as the other. Sunshine. Because it's on the lower end of my range, so it's a little bit harder to project. It's not too hard, but it's something that does need a little bit of a boost here in the volume. So whatever I'm weaker at, whatever you're weaker at, turn that up. Whatever your strength is in your range, keep those vocals kind of turned down, but still not if the vocal is meant to be a lead. Sonically, you want to listen to this sound. So like you could have these vocals turned up, these turned down, whatever, but like if your melody is one of the ones that are turned down and it's too low because this is my wheelhouse, this is where my strengths are, I have to turn it down. Only if it's overpowering everything else and it's not a melody. So you want to still keep the melody in the forefront. If the melody is your strength, only do that if at the level that it's currently set at, the vocal is still overpowering everything else. You still want to give room for other notes to shine, all the little intricate notes, the in-betweens, the lows, or whatever. But also you don't want it to be too loud to where that's all somebody hears, especially the average listener who's not going to hear every single harmony that you sing. You have to make it easier for them to listen and understand what's going on sonically. So that's where I would, you know, kind of exercise some caution. Now on the flip side, because I just played you my part, right? Now let's play Kelly's part. I mean, this is on the lower half, I would say, of Kelly's range. This is definitely something like in her lower register. So I did have to turn the vocal up a little bit in comparison to some other notes here. So we have the such a mood.
Such a mood. Sunshine.
That sunshine, I think, is the next one here.
Sunshine.
So this is a little bit higher in her range. It's still at the same level because it just sounds good with the 50 voices I have here. We're kind of balancing each other out. So these are not as turned down as I normally would if I didn't have my vocals also helping out with this harmony. Then these vocals that are in her lower range, sunshine and sunshine. Since those are more so like my strengths, I went ahead and turned my vocals up for that section, or kept them as the ones that are kind of in the forefront. And then her vocals that I kept stronger and over mine are the ones that are in the higher register. So I mean, this is kind of a more intricate situation because I have two different vocalists with two different recordings on this particular track. There's two people singing. But if this was all just one person, I would only worry about whatever your strengths are and your weaknesses are. And again, this is all processed with just on the track. So it's, you know, same processing tips as before. Let's play it all together. That's really good. That's really good.